Hi guys, it's Wendy with Ask the Landlady, and I'm here with all the tips and tricks to help you make a profit in real estate rentals. And today we're going to talk about the rise of house hacking, how regular people are living rent-free. Doesn't that sound great? Yeah, rent-free. So what if I told you there are people out there, regular people, not real estate moguls, not, trust fund babies, all that are buying a house right now, paying $0 a month to live there? You'd be like, clue me in, ask the landlady. I want to know how to do that, and figure it out. So house hacking, that's your key. And we're going to talk all things about that today. Simply, if you want to jump in the real estate game and you're young and you have nothing, this is the way to do it. This is your best, easiest way to get into real estate. So this is where we talk about it. So it's the single most powerful strategy that we have to build wealth, to get in that real estate game, and to stop throwing away money in rent each month, right? Because I get texts, emails from people like, hey, I'm paying $2,000 a month and I'm tired of this. I'm paying somebody else's mortgage. Yes, you are. It's time to start paying your mortgage. And the way to do that is to find other people to live there and rent things out to make that mortgage payment, right? So we're going to break down exactly how this works, the math, the financing, the pitfalls, because I always want you to jump in with your eyes open and know where things are going, and see what's best for you. So let's get to it. So first of all, welcome back. I hope you're a regular subscriber. If you're not, please hit subscribe. And if you're new here, welcome. I'm Wendy Myers. I'm your host. I have written some books on real estate. Check them out. Lessons from the Landlady on Amazon. Questions, answers, Fast Landlady, and my whole form packet, which you can get on my website in Word document or here. Every form you would ever need, just given away to you for a small, minimal price. I think it's like $20. So worth it. So worth it to have to do all those forms yourself. Yeah, you can have AI do it, but this is done, legal approved. So check those out. So I'm your host, and this is my channel, Ask the Landlady, because I did this because kind of got that part in my career. First of all, empty nester, something to do, getting bored. And I realized I had 25 years of worth of knowledge, and I wanted to impart that. I wanted to give back in some way. And I wanted to talk to people about real estate and help them not make the mistakes I did and set them up for success. So that's what we're here doing. So today's episode is one I've been consistently getting. Like I said, the people write to me and say, I'm paying $2,000 in rent. And, what do I do? And my answer every time, try house hacking. Now, I want to be upfront with you. House hacking is not magic. Sounds great. House hacking. It requires research, sacrifice, the willingness to be a landlord, which comes with responsibilities. It's not for everybody. It is for everybody, but you have to reframe your mind to do it. So, but for the right person, genuinely life-changing strategy. I've seen it work over and over again. So let's start at the beginning. What is house hacking? First of all, house hacking at its core is when you buy a property, you live in part of it, and you rent out the rest. The rental income either offsets the mortgage or completely eliminates it, which is fantastic. So simple concept, but there's several ways to do it, and the right one depends on your lifestyle and probably your market, I guess. So first of all is to do the multifamily hack. This is classic. You buy a duplex, you live on one side, somebody lives in the other. You buy a triplex, fourplex, whatever. You rent out the rest while you live in that one unit. This is the cleanest version because you each have your own door, your own lock, your own separate space. Everybody has privacy, which is what everybody likes. Everybody's happy. So that's the classic if you can do that one. Second one is the room rental hack. So you buy a single family home with extra bedrooms and you rent them out individually. You might rent to 2 or 3 people, depending, whatever. It's less private for you, but it's often available in more markets, and it comes at a lower price point. It's a great way to buy a house, and you essentially have roommates that are paying, but you're the one who owns the house, right? So that's kind of nice. And so I've known several savvy parents who've done this for their kids in college, right? They buy a house, their kid lives in there rent-free. Everybody else is making the rent and all the utility payments and everything else. So ideal situation for those college parents, because then in 4 years they can simply sell, or if they've got a great system going, just keep that money machine turning. So it's a nice way to do that for sure. And if you're a young professional, if you have some friends that you would work well with, you would coexist well with, you can certainly do that and set that up. So great idea. And a third probably way of doing that is the ADU hack, which is ADU is an accessory dwelling unit. And that might be you have a little cottage on your property, you have a garage that you can convert into an apartment, or space above that can be an apartment, your basement that maybe has a separate entrance that you can hack into a separate unit, all sorts of different things. This is going to give you more privacy than that renting out by the rooms. But you do have to kind of look into some zoning laws and stuff like that. It's getting more common because with our affordability crisis and lack of housing, a lot of places have become more flexible about allowing you to do these type of things. So all three of these things, whether you do buy some sort of multifamily, do the room rental or their accessory dwelling unit, all three of them are on the same core principle. Your tenant pays your mortgage. But you want the one that's right for you. And so that's going to depend on how much privacy you desire, what your market looks like, and what you personally can qualify for. So I'm going to make a strong recommendation to you right now. If you are paying rent, if you are a tenant and you are renting something out from somebody else right now, and you want to have any dreams of owning your own home, you need to look at house hacking right now, because the rent you're paying now is paying my mortgage as the landlady. Like, thank you, tenants, you're paying my mortgage, but you're paying somebody else's. It may as well be your mortgage payment, right? At the end of the day, you own that house. Maybe you're young and you can afford a house only if other people are helping you pay for it. And then 10 years down the line, you want to get married, have a family, you're set up, you got a house, right? And somebody's paid that mortgage payment for 10 years for you, which is fantastic. So definitely, if you're out there paying rent at all, you need to look at this very seriously. So, I'm Ask the Landlady. I was an English major, but I always like to talk math, because in real estate game, math matters, unfortunately. Luckily, it's not calculus. So I know what some of you are saying. This sounds great, but can it work in today's market, which is, I just did an episode about today's market, and it is crazy out there. But the answer is yes. You just have to pick the right market. So let's walk through a little scenario that I made up. So say you're buying a duplex in a Midwest city. Let's say Columbus, Ohio, because that's a nice little center. Everybody goes through Ohio at some point, right? So we'll use that as an example. Say the duplex is $300,000. You use an FHA loan, which I'll explain in a minute, and you put 3.5% down. So that's $10,500 out of pocket. You do have to have a little cash there, but maybe somebody can loan you that money. Maybe you've been saving up. Maybe you can sell some stuff, whatever. You will need that. So I know it sounds like a lot, but compare that to, what you would need for a 20% loan if you were a real estate investor, right? This is the easiest way to get in the real estate game, because you live in the property, right? You don't have to pay those 20% rates. So this is game changer as far as real estate investing. So that difference is enormous. So anyway, let's get back to that. So your mortgage on a $290,000 loan, right? Because you paid the 10% down at today's rates, which is 6.3%. That's going to adjust, but up or down, but 6.3 right now on a 30-year fixed loan. That's going to be about $1,800 a month in principal and interest. Add on your taxes and insurance, you're looking at about $2,200 all in. Okay. Now the other unit in that duplex in Columbus, a well-maintained 2-bedroom unit, it's about $1,200 to $600 a month conservatively. Say you get $1,400. So that means your out-of-pocket cost after your tenant pays their portion is somewhere between $800 and $1,000 a month for a home you own, right? Versus you paying that $1,500 to somebody else, you're paying about $800. Plus, you own that building. You know it's yours. You're building equity. Your tenant is helping you build that equity. And that's where it's getting interesting when you start to think about those factors. And in the Midwest, particularly, I use Columbus, Ohio, because that's one that's probably typical of most markets there, where you're probably going to make some towards a mortgage, but not all of it. But there are places, Cleveland, top of the list, Indianapolis, right up there. Not glamorous cities, but that's where the math works. That's where your people are renting out places or buying places, renting out half and making their full mortgage. So those are good markets for you to look at. So now I know some of you out there saying, okay, Ask the Landlady, I want to move to the Midwest. No, you're a Midwest girl, but I'm not. Fine. You don't want to move to Cleveland, fair. But I want you to understand all this so that you can calibrate your numbers for your market. So let's talk about how this all works. Let's back up a minute, because I kind of alluded to this, but I didn't really elaborate on it about what's the secret sauce here. Why does this work? And that is owner-occupant financing. This is why this is the best, easiest way to jump into the real estate game, because you can get a loan because you're living there at a much better rate than me as a real estate professional can. You know, I'm going to have to put 20% down. Boo. You are not going to have to do that. Plus, you're going to get more favorable rates. You're going to get a nice 30-year fix when they're like, we're just going to give you a 5-year adjustable rate. So that's a better situation for you. You're getting a stable one versus somebody like me that's getting a more high risk loan. So definitely a best case scenario. So, but here's your little hack there. When you buy that duplex and you tell the lender, I'm going to live there, that changes the roles. Suddenly, you can use an FHA loan with 3.5% down. You can use a conventional loan with just 5% down. You get the owner-occupant interest rates, which is a lot lower, right? And what's really good is if you're trying to buy maybe more than what they think you qualify for, they will take that rental portion and add that into the sauce, which means maybe you don't have to pay as much because you don't have to pay any points on the loan because you qualify for it because they're going to add that rent in. So that's great. If you've been in the military, the VA, if you're a veteran, VA lets you do it with zero down, zero. On a multifamily property, I cannot overstate how powerful that is. So if you're a veteran, you should be buying real estate. Use that loan and use it on something that can turn into a real estate investment, not just a home for you. Do a duplex, do a triplex, do something where you are building for your future. That's powerful, powerful stuff. Now, there's one catch that you need to know, and that is if you're buying it as owner occupant, you do actually have to live there. So you're required to live in it at least 12 months. If you don't, then that is fraud, mortgage fraud, and they will go after you for that. So you can commit to anything for a year, right? You have to live there at least 1 year. What's nice is you can live there for a year, maybe month 13, you see another deal. You've been building up some money. Time to wash, rinse, repeat, right? And that's how people add to their portfolio. Because if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to live in your multifamilies, your duplexes that you buy, that is powerful, powerful stuff. Suddenly, before you know it, 1 unit becomes 9 units, right? So that's why house hacking is so powerful as a tool. So I have to balance all this excitement because isn't that exciting? 1 to 9 units, yeah, bring it on. But I've been a landlord for a long time and I've seen house hacking go wrong, right? So there are some things you need to know. Number one, you're always on call. You live there. Toilet overflows, they're gonna be knocking on your door, right? It's not gonna be like, oh, sorry, I'm out of town, or don't answer your phone, or I live across town, or whatever. You're literally right there. So they are going to be doing that. So one thing you want to do is definitely have a plan in place if things go out. Maybe you have you can tell them right up front, hey, if the furnace goes out or whatever, I give you permission to call this person or this plumber, because things will break. It's a house. You've lived in houses. If you've even been a renter, things break. So things are going to happen and you got to have some sort of backup plan. If not, you're always on call, always 24/7. But I've seen some savvy people, what they'll say is, oh, I bought my furnace through these people. I would trust them if that or the AC goes out. And then there's this plumber I like in town. You could give them those numbers for emergencies and say, you know what, you need to call them. And you educate them on what an emergency is, right? No hot water is not an emergency at 1 a.m., right? That is a business day problem that you don't have a hot shower. It's not an emergency. That can wait. You're not paying overtime hours for that. No heat when it's in the winter, that is an emergency. And that's when maybe you have some space heaters on, hand. First of all, if it's a house, you're going to be cold too. So you're going to have some plans in place. And then if water's shooting through the ceiling, okay, that's an emergency. Somebody needs to find that main water and shut it off. But if it's just, some small leak, that is a business day problem. So those are the kinds of things that you will be dealing with. Number two, you want to screen those tenants like your life depends on it. And it does, because you're living with them, right? Nobody wants to be living with a criminal or somebody who's going to rob you or beat you up or worse. destroy your property, whatever, not pay the rent. So you want to screen these people because they are literally living with you, right? A lot of times I rent to people that I probably don't want in my house, but they're great renters. But these people are in your house with you. So that's something you want to do. So check references, trust your gut, and definitely do a background check. That money is well worth it every day, all night. So definitely do that. It's kind of good to maybe ask around. If you're doing a duplex, maybe you'll find somebody that you click with, somebody from your church, somebody from your workplace, somebody from your school program, whatever. Those are ideal situations where you get to know them, where you're not just putting a stranger there, because that can be dangerous. So that's number 2. Number 3, if you have an up and down place, is to think about noise. Whoever's going to be above you, if you're on the downstairs unit, is going to be walking. You might hear their TV, blah, blah, blah. You want to be careful about pets. You're going to be hearing them. So noise is a big factor when you're all living together. So that's where you kind of can go online and look for, or get my book. $20. I have a roommate agreement in there. Spells out all the rules for roommates. Especially if you're all sharing one house. And you would want to have something comprehensive there anyway. Like, what hours can you do laundry if it's noisy, or what, what if I want to use the kitchen exclusively for a night? Those types of things can all be drawn up in some sort of roommate agreement if you are sharing one actual house. Number 4, and this is one really important. I should have made it number 1, which is know your local laws before you buy. Let me say that again. Know your local laws before you buy. These laws vary by state, by municipality, by wherever. Some have strict rent control. Some have a complex eviction process. Some have specific inspections before you can even move somebody in. Know this before you buy the property, not after. You want to know what you're getting into. So, that's easy. See if you have a landlord association around. Talk to the landlords in your town and say, what do I need to know? Go in and talk to the coding and enforcement people at your city. That's what they're there for. It's better to know beforehand so you don't make any mistakes, right? Number 5 is to budget for vacancy. Assume that your unit is going to sit for at least 1 month per year, okay? I can't understate that. Maybe 2. Build that into your math. A house hack that only works if that side is rented. 100% of the time, you're setting yourself up for failure. That's not a good house hack. That's very fragile. Somebody moves out and you're going to be sitting there like this. They might move out in the middle of the night in January and you're like, how do I get somebody in here before spring? And you're going to be sitting there on its own paying that mortgage alone for a couple months. So your model has to mean that you can make it a couple months without that person. And I stand by that, because if they stay there, fantastic. There's your profit. There's your money to put towards upgrades for your side, whatever. But that's very important, is to be keeping that in mind. So where in the world, or where in the US, because I don't know much about the world, but where in the US should I house hack right now? Ask the landlady. And here's where I'll give you my take. The map I told you is cleanest in the Midwest. Cleveland, Indianapolis, Columbus, Pittsburgh have duplex prices that are still relatively affordable. I've been looking at them, and the rental demand is solid. People are wanting to rent in these places. They're markets where, with the right property, you can get pretty close to that living free that I talked about in the beginning. Sunbelt cities like Greenville, South Carolina, Huntsville, Alabama, also worth a look. So check those out. Growing populations, reasonable prices, and landlord-friendly rules, which is very important. So higher cost city, like Denver, Austin, anything in that Pacific Northwest, house hacking works, but the numbers are tighter. You might not eliminate that mortgage entirely, but you can reduce it. There's still an offset to your mortgage. So if you're in a position where you can buy and you're going to stay in that area for a while, you're not going to be, it's definitely worth looking into than just throwing away all your money on rent. And high cost cities like New York, LA, San Francisco, that's where it's hardest. Probably I'd look more at like ADUs, especially in California. Those are huge. You have good weather, you can put in those ADUs pretty well. And that can generate like $2,500 in rent. That helps, but it's certainly not going to maybe offset everything like in those other areas that I talked about it. So, but the honest truth really is house hacking works best where you live. Tell me where you live. I'd love to know where you live. I'm not going to stalk you, I swear. I just want to know the markets. Anyway, shoot it down there, because that's where you live. That's where you want to have a house. Wherever you want to own a house is where you should be house hacking. So at least for 12 months, right? So there. All right, let me land this plane. This has been a long video. House hacking is not really a hack. House hacking is not a hack. It's actually a strategy, and one of the few tools available to regular people to jump into the real estate game, right? You don't already have thousands of dollars sitting around here to put 20% down to become a real estate investor, right? but you have a dream and you have the excitement and you want to grow a portfolio, this is the easiest, best way to jump in. If you're willing to be a landlord and take on those things, it's powerful, powerful stuff. So this episode's getting your wheels turning. Here's your homework. Look up duplexes in your area. Look at small multifamily. Run the rough math. What would the other unit rent? Is this someplace you would live? If so, then that's a huge viable option and you should be jumping on that. Compare it to what you're paying in rent and see how that works for you. So you might surprise yourself. So if this has surprised you or enlightened you or interested you, hit that like button. I would love that. And hit subscribe while you're at it. And check out my books. And I guess that's all I have to say, because it's been like 20 minutes of me just babbling on. But I hope you found it valuable. And I hope you're back next week. We're going to be here again talking about all things real estate and how to make a profit for you. So have a great day.